All right, what's up, everybody? Doing the second video like I said I would. After eating dinner, I was still kind of sleepy. But I wanted to kind of hold myself to have some sort of integrity and say if I'm going to do something to do it. But yeah, I just had a good dinner, really nice shave and a shower. I'm very grateful. It's, really nice to have all of those things when a lot of people don't. But I wanted to just make a quick video because I said that I wanted to kind of make a video talking a little bit more about my experiences with recovering from the adverse effects of nitrous oxide, because I have been getting a handful of comments, people asking about that stuff on some of my older vids. So I figured, yeah, I'd try to be a little more detailed, and then also it'd be a more recent video. So, just for a little bit of context, I was pretty familiar with nitrous oxide and have used it off and on, for quite a while. But, I think starting back in like 2007, 2008. But in the year of 2019, when I was working as an RN, about mid-year, around August, is when I really started to heavily abuse it. So I did for like a month and a half, to the point where I'd become psychotic. Well, I was becoming manic, and then a little bit of psychosis and paranoia. But then I did end up stopping, or at least stopping enough to come back down to reality. But picked it back up like mid-November, maybe late October, and was abusing it pretty much almost daily, and a decent quantity of at least a few hundred a day. Cartridges. I would get the 8-gram nitrous oxide cartridges that are traditionally, or I guess usually, used in whipping cream, like your own cream. I would get a dispenser that you would normally put the whipping cream in there and then crack the charger into. But of course, I wouldn't put the whipping cream in there and just inhale straight from the dispenser. And typically, whenever I guess had my binge or just bout of using them, I usually preferred, or I did my best to try and do them back to back, etc. To where, if I had 300, I would sit there and do those 300, one after another in quick succession. Also, I would try to hold as much of the gas in my lungs as possible. Obviously, if you're doing that, then you're limiting your intake of oxygen, fresh air. So I just want to kind of a little context. But yeah, so abusing it heavily, like frequently, and a significant amount caught up to me in terms of becoming like I shouldn't say full-blown psychotic, but I was certainly having a lot of delusions, grandiosity, other signs of mania, like I wasn't sleeping much. I had this intense euphoria even when I wasn't using the cartridges. Either way, it became so noticeable. I started having bizarre behavior, especially at work. Part of it was having delusions of like being trapped in a different reality. And I guess it's kind of hard to explain it, but I behaved in a way that I thought would be like inconspicuous, not to other people, but to potential non-human entities. Oh shit, my monitor just turned off. There we go. But yeah, non-human entities. So it's like I wasn't afraid of being thought bizarre or weird by other people. It was kind of essentially being caught like existing when I'm not supposed to. It's hard to describe. I won't go into it though, because I do want to talk about my recovery. But I just want to preface that. So it was to the point where I did end up losing my job on December 18th of 2019. My use just continued, increased significantly after that point, especially A week later, on Christmas Day, I had an altercation with the police, was tased like 4 or 5 times. I've been eventually cuffed. And for me, that wasn't a rock bottom. I don't think I ever truly hit rock bottom. It just kept getting worse and worse. Because at least for me, in my early ideas of recovery, I had this preconceived notion that once you hit rock bottom, where life got terrible enough, like you would want recovery or like be successful in recovery. And I've found that it can always get worse, or at least in my experience, it always did get worse and worse. So that's why I say there wasn't really a rock bottom. But after the arrest, that's especially when my use picked up. I was, at that point, essentially buying it daily. And this is all estimates. I don't have exact numbers. But I was making at least a few trips a day, and buying like anywhere from 250 to 400 cartridges in one purchase, one trip. And it got to the point where, I was averaging about 350, 400, like 4 or 5 times a day, which started, again, it's so hard to say, but probably like mid-February onward up until like April, late March, early April. So at my peak, I was abusing like probably around 1,000 cartridges a day, daily for, weeks on end. And my mental health just continued to deteriorate, and my grasp of reality continued to deteriorate. I was just, it was a mess. But with the nerve damage that I experienced, so I don't know the exact dates, but I think it was sometime in March. My parents had caught wind of kind of what's going on in my life, and losing my nursing job and being arrested, etc. And so they were like, hey, like come over, I guess essentially visit them in the state that they're living in. So I did go there. When I was walking in the airport, kind of to my flight, but especially after landing and walking to the area where my mom picked me up, is when I started noticing some changes in my motor abilities. I was still able to walk, but it felt like I was walking in molasses. It's kind of hard to describe, but it just felt so heavy and like so clunky. And of course, combine that with the fact that, I was just paranoid that what would happen to is like a lot of just weird coincidences through a lot of my use, which of course, most likely were coincidences. But that paired with the fact that, hours of hypoxia every day isn't really normal, like that's kind of like, well, I should be dead or brain dead. So that kind of fed into that grandiosity. But anyways, it was like I was walking in molasses, but I still was able to. So she drove me to their house. I only stayed there for a day. I demanded to get a flight out the following day. I was having some capgras delusions, which means I thought my parents were not my parents. They looked like my parents. They sounded like my parents, but I was convinced that they were like demons or something like that. They wanted to kidnap me. That was a pretty common theme with the paranoia, was being kidnapped. I had this special knowledge. Oh, why does this keep going? This special knowledge, and so therefore, humans, or like I said, non-humans, they wanted to capture me so they can experiment on me, or I had this divine knowledge. So I thought they were imposters. I didn't actually think. So I demand to leave. And when that 24 hours I was there, still walking like pretty normal, but my calves had this immense ache to them. But then it wasn't until when I got home, at that point things, it's started getting more and more difficult to walk, but I was able to walk. But things kind of gradually deteriorated over that 24 hours. When I got home, pretty much on my way home, I stopped by the store and bought more nitrous oxide, of course, and then went home. I don't know how much I did. I don't know if it was just that one trip or if there's another one. I'm pretty sure I remember I got to the store, but then I turned back because I was spooked because it looked like this person was like spying or something like that outside of the sex shop, which is where I bought a lot of the nitrous. So I got spooked, and then I was heading back home, and then I'm like, well, no, I really want nitrous. So I drove back again and did manage to build up the courage to go in and get some. But I don't know if that was my only my only trip for that day. But anyways, eventually went to sleep, woke up, and that's when the repercussions, the nerve damage, like really set in. I was not able to walk at all. I couldn't get out of bed. I could like crawl out of bed onto the floor, and so for at least a week, I want to say it was probably around 2 weeks, where I was reduced to only crawling around my apartment, because I just did not have the strength or the dexterity to stand on my feet, and not just walk. I mean, just stand on my feet. I could like kind of like crawl, to the toilet and hoist myself up. Fortunately, I still had enough upper body strength, but that even was pretty diminished. Like, I didn't have the strength to be able to grip and open like a bag of chips. But my legs were the most heavily affected. So yeah, for a few weeks I was reduced to crawling around my apartment to and from the bathroom and to the front door because, of course, my my addiction, figure out a way where I can get the nitrous oxide canisters delivered to my home, from like a cash and carry, like a restaurant supplier, on Postmates. So not even that, not even not being able to walk, I just did not care. I still wanted to continue doing it. Really, the only reason why I stopped was because I was getting pretty close, but like that was the last bit that completely depleted any ability of me to be able to purchase any. I had burned up through my savings way before then, but I had a handful of credit cards at the time, and I maxed all those out, and so therefore didn't have enough money to buy anymore. But even if I couldn't walk, I was still buying it and getting it delivered and crawling to my door, getting them, crawling back, and just sitting there on the floor and just going at it. So I really wish I had like better estimates of time. It was probably like a few weeks after I'd stopped using it is where I was starting to get the strength or ability to like hold onto a counter or like a chair and lift myself up onto my feet. But I could not if I let go of whatever I was holding on to, I would tip over. I didn't have the ability to balance on my own 2 feet. And then also, I had a very low tolerance to being able to stand on my feet while holding on to a counter or something. My feet were just completely useless. Like I had drop foot, so I couldn't really, like do this with my foot. And then also I could not curl my toes at all. I could sit there and concentrate on just that, and I could not even move them a millimeter. And I will say, like, I was very aware of the adverse effects and dangers of nitrous oxide. I mean, not only are you dealing with, the mental health effects, the hypoxia, significant reduction of oxygen intake. But one thing is that nitrous oxide inactivates vitamin B12 in your body. I mean, all the vitamins are important, but vitamin B12 is especially important. Plays a role in the production of your blood cells. If you have reduced B12, I think it's like pernicious anemia. So it's not iron related. It's just your body can't produce those blood cells because there's no vitamin B12. Another thing it's really important in is the maintenance of your nervous system, your nerves. There's just really quickly, there's like the the nerve, like kind of main cell, and then there's an axon that kind of goes down, and then there's a whole bunch of those lined up, and through action potential with changes of electricity, it sends the electrical current. Well, around each of those is something called myelin sheath. It's essentially insulation. So like with any sort of cables, you might have like your phone charging cable. There's going to be the metal conductors on the inside, but on the outside is that insulation, which essentially protects the signal to be able to go to or from which way it's being sent. So I kind of regret, like, I didn't seek immediate medical attention, because at that point I knew, like, it's not always, nerve damage isn't always irreversible, but it can often be. I guess it depends too on the source of the nerve damage. Like if you have nerves severed, like in a car accident, that's pretty much kaput. But I did. My friend did eventually talk me into going to the emergency department, and she drove me there. Just because, like, I couldn't take the bus. I mean, I didn't have money to take the bus, and but I was really hesitant to go. I did just because it's like, well, why not? But I was hesitant because I knew there was nothing that they would be able to do for me. But I guess the part I regret is when they did their diagnostic, like assessment for post-discharge. They wanted to refer me to like a neurologist, and get like an MRI or something so they can see kind of what and where and how much damage had occurred. But I knew like that probably wouldn't have done anything. It just would have been nice to know, like, moving forward and kind of know exactly what had happened. They did do some lab tests too. They did draw my vitamin B12, which monitor, which was actually fine. It was within normal limits. But another test that they can do is they test for a metabolite in your body. It's called methylmalonic acid. It's an intermediate in your cellular respiration metabolism. And without going too much into details, vitamin B12 is kind of involved in converting that back to another compound that your body uses. But of course, if you don't have that vitamin B12 because it's all inactivated and your diet's been atrocious, then that builds up. And so they drew that too, and that one was really elevated. It was like 10 times the upper range of the reference range. So really, really elevated. And I think they ran like normal saline too, which is stupid. It's just like, I can drink water. What probably would have helped with so I guess, so that's kind of all the context. Over the course of several months, I'd say it wasn't in like, maybe like 3 to 5 months, I was able to like walk, very wobbly, but walk without holding on to anything. And slowly, gradually, I was able to walk more, and for longer distances or longer amount of time. Of course, when I first started walking, I had walked with like a limp too, because I think my body was kind to adapt to the change in my balance as best as it could. I still had pretty much no sensory input, so I think that kind of affected my body's ability to kind of balance according to what it's feeling on the ground, what your feet are feeling. But I started to regain my motor function. Fortunately, now today, it still is a little bit blunted, and I do have some peripheral neuropathy, some nerve pain in my legs. I fortunately did regain some amount of sensation. It's mostly pressure. It's not that fine tactile touch, but I can feel like pressure. And but yeah, I wasn't able to feel anything for several months. But over time, as I started walking, and of course abstained from the nitrous oxide use, gradually progressed. What I should have said earlier too is preface it. Hopefully, don't take any this is not medical advice. If you are experiencing something similar, I highly urge you to seek medical treatment and to follow your doctor's recommendations. Certainly don't do what I did, because they gave me a prescription for vitamin B12, which I didn't take, because also I was just intensely suicidal, not necessarily actively, but I just didn't care to be alive. So I didn't care if I really recovered. If anything, it kind of gave me more of a justification to complete suicide, because it's like, well, I can't walk, I lost my job, I lost everything. So I just didn't have much of a desire to try and recover. But I think what helped me was just slowly, gradually walking more and more. And I don't think I got to it too, but I was mentioning the sensory input, because I did walk with kind of a limp. I was wobbly, but also kind of it felt like my body was just adjusting weirdly to it. So if you saw me walking for the first 6-9 months after that first onset, you would be like, that person's walking a little weird. But I was able to walk though, and it did hurt to walk. I think again, just the way my body was trying to adapt to it. But I think just the process of gradually walking, and of course staying away from the laughing gas, I was able to recuperate as much as I have. And I hate to say it too, my main motivation for walking was to walk down to the gas station so I can buy beer. Sadly to say, it probably would have been best if I had gotten that referral and then did physical therapy, because I guarantee you they would have recommended physical therapy, maybe occupational therapy too, to kind of regain your function, but also kind of to adjust to it. So even if I couldn't walk a lot or very well, they can give me a cane or something like that, work with me in that regard. But no, I just switched to drinking, and then I just drank daily from there on out, because I still was able to kind of scrounge up a little bit of money here and there. And then I did eventually start selling all my stuff, a lot of my stuff, to continue to fund my alcoholism, because I just couldn't cope with the amount of destruction. I mean, both life, situational, and physical and mental damage. I mean, there's just so much that I just could not cope with what I had done in the situation I was in without being intoxicated. But I think that walk into the gas station to and fro helped. It wasn't don't drink alcohol. If you're having something similar, please don't drink alcohol. Like I said, follow your doctor's recommendations, your treatment plan. But yeah, so I'm pretty much 99% normal to this day. So I mean, it's almost November of 2022. It wasn't, I would say, probably until November of last year of 2021 where I was pretty much at 90%. I've gotten even a little bit better since then, but I'd say November. So it was about a year and a half, give or take, where from the onset of the nerve damage and inability to walk and balance, up to being like 90% normal. But to this day, I'm pretty much 99% normal. If I overexert myself, or even just some days, I can be a little bit wobbly on my feet, especially like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm kind of stiff from biking or from walking or both. That tends to come into play a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, I really don't have any issues. I am able to walk just fine, walk for long distances. I am able to bike ride for fairly long distances. Yeah, I can jump. I can, if I need to, I can run or jog to the bus stop if I'm running late. It's just for me, I'm just very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I don't use that word lightly because a lot of times, like I was saying, with situations like this, you don't really recover that, at least from some nerve damage. Okay, so I shouldn't say, from like vitamin B12 deficiency. But if I can go back and redo it, like now having like some motivation to live and to be physically well, I would have, gotten the MRI or whatever scans that they would have done. I would have followed their orders, which, like I said, probably would be physical therapy and or occupational therapy, supplemented with vitamin B12, had like instantly stopped buying any more. And then work with PT to regain. So yeah, hopefully that answers, at least is a little bit more in depth. I'm sorry, I know this is a little lengthy, but yeah, I just want there to at least shed a little bit more light on kind of my experience with the recovering. Like I said, just from the questions that people have asked, because I'm not the only one who has, experienced nerve damage from nitrous oxide, or just any sort of nerve damage to the point where it affects your ability to walk. So yeah, hopefully it was helpful. I mean, if as always, if you guys have any questions, anything further, I can respond to you in comments, to your comment if you want to leave a question, or if I see a handful of them, I can always make another video talking a little bit more about it. But yeah, I mean, just it's tough, it's like I want to say, just stay strong, like be optimistic and hopeful, but I know that even before all this fiasco for a lot of my life, when you just get so depressed or you're just that driven to self-destruct with substance use, hope and optimism isn't really a word in your vocabulary. So, I know it's a lot easier said, especially now, me being on the other side of this, to be like, oh yeah, stay strong, be hopeful, be optimistic. Because it's just hard. It's hard in that situation, and in a lot of situations. So, I guess seek medical treatment, follow your doctor's orders, and then just lean on your friends and family. Like, literally and figuratively. I did have to have my friend walk me to my mailbox just to get my mail for a while. But for support, and just in recovery in general, having those friends and family that can support you. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you next time, and thank you for watching.